Hello every pony, it is Top Hat Phony here with the next chapter of Butterflies by Ghosttown Brony on filmfiction.net. This is chapter 9, it's from Fluttershy's point of view, and I will now read it. Fluttershy kept herself huddled close to the sleeping rainbow, trying her best to fight off the cool night air. At least the cold helped her to stay awake. The moon was full and shone brightly across the forest. All was quiet, which she was thankful for. She didn't want to wake up Dash too early. The shy mare tried to lose herself in thought, but the snores of the sleeping pony distracted her and pulled her back to reality. So instead she looked to Rainbow, sleeping, her body gently rising and falling with every breath. It dawned on Fluttershy that she'd never seen this pony sleep before. She looked so cute and peaceful. The Timberwolves were really getting to the multicoloured mare. All afternoon she looked stretched, close to the breaking point, and so tired. But as she lay with her eyes closed, the wear of the day left her. She even had a little smile. Every couple of minutes she would give a loud snore. It made Fluttershy jump a little at first, but she quickly got used to it. She wished she could lay down with her, but she knew if she did, she would fall asleep almost instantly. So she sat in an upright position beside her. The pony had fallen asleep on her injured side again, so, as gentle as she could, Fluttershy rolled her over. The only response from Rainbow was an absurdly loud snore, causing the yellow Pegasus to giggle. She was out cold. The whole forest seemed to sleep. There was no movement. The only sounds came from the nocturnal birds leaving their resting places to search for some food. She hoped the Timberwolves weren't doing the same. Fluttershy had no way to measure the time, but it seemed at least 2 hours after Rainbow fell asleep, and they hadn't heard anything since early in the afternoon. That fact didn't soothe her at all. Rather, it seemed to create a thick tension in the air. Dash snored again. Fluttershy moved herself a little closer to her sleeping lover, trying to keep her eyes and mind off the forest and what might lay in the shadows. So instead she focused on Dash. With each day her mane got more and more ratty. She ran her hoof through it, and slowly and gently brushing all the different colours. Red, orange, yellow, green, and blue, and violet. Warm colours. Her eyes drifted to Rainbow's slightly stained wing. She wanted to lift it and take a look at the cut, but she refused herself. Every time she looked over her injury, both their moods seemed to take a turn for the worst. And it just made her even more afraid than she already was. Besides, it wasn't going to get better. Only a hospital could grant that relief, and if they couldn't find one... She pulled her attention back to the colourful mane as another thunderous snore escaped Dash. Fluttershy laughed again, despite herself. It took a while, but after many passes, Dash's usual unkempt mane style returned, and Fluttershy leaned down to give her a peck on her forehead. As she did, a strand of her own pink hair fell in front of her eyes. She pulled her forelock in front of her face, expecting her hair to look atrocious, but instead finding it relatively tidy. She looked down to the sleeping pony in surprise. Her smile looked almost smug, and her ear twitched in her sleep. As Fluttershy leaned in to give her another kiss, something caught her eye. Just beyond the tree line, half hidden in the foliage, was a rose bush The crimson flowers seemed to almost glow in the sun, in the light of the moon, the full moon. Dash snored. Fluttershy had been dreading having to wake her up. She needed sleep, and she just looked so peaceful. Maybe if she picked her some flowers, it might make her happy. Fluttershy lifted herself up and stretched her legs. She stepped carefully around Rainbow, trying to keep as quiet as possible. She made her way to the bush. There must have been almost 20 roses, and most of them were in full bloom. She got to work, but trying to pluck the thorny flowers with her teeth was tedious to say the least. She had to bite them off the stem, making sure not to cut off too much. More than once she recoiled from the plants with a small squeal after the third thorn poked her. She tasted blood. As she dropped the 12th and final flower into her bouquet, a sudden realization stole her breath. When was the last time Rainbow snored? She turned and bolted back to the mare, still lying on the ground. "Rainbow!" she screamed, throwing herself down next to her. She rolled the blue mare onto her back. Fluttershy nearly cried when she heard a small moan escape the blue mare, but held it back as she saw her face contorted with agony. Her cyan hooves pressed tightly to her temples. She was having another migraine. Fluttershy tried to keep her on her back, but Dash roughly pushed herself away. She groaned in a pained, incoherent voice. Fluttershy could only watch as she scrambled around, dragging her body through the dirt, driving her hooves into the ground. This was far worse than she'd seen before. She was going to hurt herself. She caught up to her and tried to hold her. She wrapped her forelegs firmly around her body. Rainbow fought Fluttershy's grasp, but it was half-hearted, and eventually she was able to guide her down to the ground. The kind Pegasus had her chest pressed against Dash's back. Once they were lying down, she noticed the tears streaming down her blue face. Her magenta eyes were shut tight. She stopped struggling directly against the yellow mare, but her hooves still shot out, searching desperately for something to push against. Fluttershy tried to talk to her, speak calm, soothing words, but Dash couldn't hear. She was deafened by the pain. "Shh. You're going to be okay, Rainbow. Fight through it," she said, over and over. The heat radiating off her body was unbelievable. Fluttershy wrapped her hind legs around Rainbow's, then shifted her forelegs up to pin Rainbow's against her own body. Unable to move, Dash began to tremble, and her moans turned to sobs. Fluttershy cried too, but still spoke into Rainbow's ear, trying to calm her. After several minutes, she stopped shaking, and her sobs became small whimpers. Her tears still fell, but eventually her ears twitched again, and she knew her words were finally making it through. As she felt the fight leave Rainbow, Fluttershy quickly moved herself to face her front. "Shh, it's okay. You're okay. I'm here." Rainbow's magenta eyes shot open. Her pupils were small, but as she focused on Fluttershy, they began to dilate. She swiftly wrapped her in a tight embrace, which she gladly returned. "Ah, my head," Rainbow complained. Her voice had gone from raspy to ragged. "How are you feeling?" the other pony asked worriedly, brushing her mane away before feeling her forehead. "Horrible, but I think it's getting better." She paused. "I'm sorry I lied about the migraines. They haven't gone away, and it just gets worse every time." Fluttershy was shocked. "Rainbow, I know I told you not to lie, but I didn't think it would get this bad, and I didn't want you to worry." I'm sorry. How many times she had trouble finding her voice? That was the fourth one. Again, the shy mare wanted to be angry, but she couldn't. Instead, she just continued holding her lover close. Her body temperature had dropped to a normal and comfortable level, and Fluttershy found herself absorbing the warmth into her. I could feel you, Rainbow said suddenly. Usually I can't tell what's happening, but I could feel you holding me. Thank you. One more tear rolled down her yellow cheek. I love you. I love you too. The bouquet of roses lay forgotten in the brush. So, that was the 9th chapter of the story that I'm reading, that is called Butterflies by Ghosttown Brony on filmfiction.net. I recommend you have a look at his stuff. He is amazing. Thank you for listening, and catch you soon.